Well, hello everyone, and I'm Harjot Singh. I'm the Deputy Convener for IPA Awards 2020, and I'm joined here with very, very talented duo Simon and James from BBH, who won the Grand Prix last night for the Tesco submission. So we're very, very happy to be speaking with them. I don't think we've done this before. We've interviewed the Grand Prix winners in this way, but so in a series of many firsts, this is one as well. So, welcome, guys, and we're so happy to have you join us. How are you both feeling the morning after the night before?
I think I was saying to James earlier, I'm quite grateful the pub's actually shut at 10 p.m. But I think it stopped me from feeling a little bit rough this morning. So I'm behind the rustiness. It feels great, and I think myself and James have been working on Tesco together as a kind of a media agency, creative agency combo for about 5 years. So it feels like a lovely kind of cherry on the top of all the work that we've been doing.
I thought just to say I'm still in a bit of shock actually, because you sent a film crew round to my house and to BBH, and I think that's probably the bigger shock than winning the Grand Prix. But no, obviously we're really pleased, and as Simon said, I feel like this has been a bit of a journey for all of us, and I think winning the gold was a real aim of ours, and winning the Grand Prix, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, does it?
Yeah, I mean, when we were thinking about, what we're going to talk about in this conversation, um, it wasn't really difficult to plan it because everyone probably has the same questions. And it's really the objective of this call or this conversation is to just go a little bit behind the curtains and see what it took. And a lot of times, I mean, we all have written papers and we know what it feels like. A lot of times it just looks as if a bunch of people sit in an office, take out time over and above their day jobs, and then just have a go at it, and then write a couple of drafts and then send it in. And I think what we have a real opportunity to do today is to also educate and enlighten people on just how much work it takes and what goes on and what it takes to win a Grand Prix at the world's most prestigious effectiveness award show. So, just how much in advance um, did you start working on this?
I think it's been quite a funny journey because I think we both, as I say, started working on Tesco maybe 5 years ago when Tesco came over to BBH. We started working with the MediaCom guys and quite a new Tesco team client side as well. And I think even early days, I think part of the appeal of working on Tesco was the chance not just to work with such a big cultural brand, but to go, we this is something which we can actually have an impact on. And there is a real, even at the start, going, there's a real marketing story here. So I think right from the start, it was this is the type of thing we want to win both creative awards and effectiveness awards. And of course, in the latter, the IPA is the highest. And then I think 2, 3 years into our journey, we wrote a paper which we couldn't quite get over the line. And so I think that just made us a little bit hungrier. So in a weird way, I think getting the paper finally wrap up 5 years and to get such a lovely award for it, I think there's almost a bit of relief as well as pleasure too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just to add is I suppose the old adage that in crisis there's an opportunity. I think both me and Simon were drawn to this brand for many, many great reasons. I think, but playing a part in at least a small part in helping it turn around was obviously too good an opportunity to turn up. And I think, yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. So yeah.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it takes so many people and just so much talent and so much commitment to get to this level of excellence. So, just when you reflect on your journey, really specifically with regards to this submission, did you ever have a kickoff session? Did you have a moment where you all got together and said, right, we're going to have a strategy to win at the IPA and win big? And did you have a team set in place and talk about who does what and set regular, just reviews in place? What was that? Did you have a process or did it just, is it just something you guys led and then just weighed in as and when? What was the process like? Because everyone's curious to know how you got there.
I think before Simon gives you the process, we won't probably reveal this. He actually came in on his paternity leave to kick it off. So we had a kickoff session. I always remember it back in Jan. We both just become parents very recently, and Simon in Jan. So that's dedication day one. But Simon, let you maybe expand on the process we went through.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. I don't think I told my wife that's what I was doing. So thanks, mate. No, I mean, of all the embarrassing things to get hold up for, it's writing an effectiveness paper. No, I think it's. We knew early days we wanted the not just agencies but the Tesco marketing team as a whole to get recognition, because I mean, we're talking from an agency standpoint, but such a huge team over at Tesco, you know, and all of the work and the effort that goes in to do something the size and the scale of, you know, one of the biggest retailers in Europe, to try and wrestle that into some type of kind of clarity, structure, and strategy. When, as we know with the retailers, like, you know, you're reviewing numbers every day. So how do you instill some long-term thinking? That was probably the hardest bit. And then in terms of practically, how did we do it? I think actually when we realised we couldn't get the original paper away a couple of years ago, we almost agreed then, right, next time, let's lick our wounds a little bit and then we're going to run at it properly. And then I think we spent a lot of time learning from previous processes that we've been on for paper writing, getting the right people in place, so making sure we're tight on the econometrics, making sure all the data supplies are set up between Tesco and the guys over at Mediacom Econometrics, to make sure that we've got everything that we need and in the right format, getting extra opinions and views in, whether that be from previous IPA winners or from different views on the numbers. I think we all had our own personal stooges who would tell us that we're becoming too wordy and the paper wasn't written that well. So I think it's that classic, right from the start, we almost made a list of everybody that we think we need to make it happen. And perhaps one of the most important roles is Nick Ashley over at Tesco. So he played points between myself and James and the entire Tesco team. And I think without that Tesco support and the access and the ability to go, actually, I can find out the number of transactions on the 12th of May in 2017 has been amazing. And without that collaboration, I don't think you'd ever done it. And you'll know as well as many people, I always say, start the process kind of 10 months out. So much of it is permissions and, you know, paving the way to actually get the things that you need. And that's the most important thing, I think, because we can all write and we can all think and so on, but to actually have everything packaged up, that makes the biggest difference.
It does. You know, this is one thing that I feel is quite underrated, and we don't speak of it enough, about the kind of advocacy, support, and partnership at the clients and with the clients, and the shared ambition that with the clients to, you know, win and basically show the way to the rest of the industry on how it's done. So talk to us a little bit about how that went with the clients. He said, you know, you've just alluded to it, that they were helpful and instrumental in being able to kind of get information and data. Were they part of the writing as well? Did you have any kind of sessions where they took over the edits and took a stab or a run at recrafting it? Because so much of it is the craft of storytelling as well. So what's the scope and involvement of the client partnership in your opinion?
I mean, it's massive. I think we agreed up front that myself and James would partner on this. It kind of represents our roles on the agency side for a long time. Agreed that I was going to hold the pen on it, so kind of the book stops at me for making sure we've got drafts and so on. And James played much more of a role on the data side of making sure we've got the right stuff. And again, his colleagues over at Mediacom owned a lot of the data as well. So we were we had ownership of it. But then from a client point of view, I think there's kind of three bands at which they helped. I think the first is almost philosophically the fact that the Tesco guys all buy in to marketing effectiveness. And of course, every client says that, but to actually set up the systems in place and to give access to the data and to be open in using the data, you don't always get. So I think philosophically they were on board. I think secondly, the practical piece as well is, I think the way there's such a strong team and culture over at Tesco. I think once it's backed, everybody buys into it. And I think that's almost like the business's superpower. If Tesco get behind something, the size and the scale, they can make it amazing. And I think that felt true for helping us with the IPA paper. But then the third bit, I think, is a little bit of bribery. Alessandra Bellini, the CCO, promised that if we get, well, I say promised, we might have strong armed her a little bit, that if we got anything over silver, she'd buy us a year's supply of Prosecco. So I think a little bit definitely helped too.
When you think about this journey, so, what I've gathered from you is that you've obviously, this is an ambition that starts early. The process is one that can go back as far out as a year in advance, and you start building it out. It's a long window of time. What were your most memorable, both of you, ups and downs, any highs and lows in getting here, specifically with regards to this entry?
I had an enviable job of trying to make sure all the data came out at Tesco clean, and obviously clearly as a retailer there was so much data that we wanted to use and analyze as part of this paper and the one previously. So it's all well and good getting the data. Getting sign off for the data is a completely different thing. And actually, we had the honourable duty of going up to well-regarded city. This obviously pre-COVID times, and on one Friday, me and Simon pitching to the legal counsel why we had to, relinquish this data, because obviously clearly to win an award or to at the IPA, you've obviously got to open up your books, you've got to be very transparent, you've got to really show marketing's role within the contribution to the success and the growth, right? So you need the numbers, is obviously an obvious point. I think we came out of the meeting thinking we did a great job, and maybe being an agency, we thought we'd done a really good sell job on why this data is really applicable. When we came out thinking, done, we've nailed it. I think we almost had a beer on the way back, maybe not. Who knows? And then come Monday morning, I think we got an email, maybe as long as my arm, explaining why we couldn't use this data and all the various reasons. So we've had a few head in the hands moments, and it's all completely understandable. Being a massive PLC, being a multi-billion pound business, you have to treat this data very, very sensitively. And obviously we're in the marketing community, we understand its importance, its role within a paper like this, but explaining this to non-marketing people, obviously, but to support what Simon said, having Alessandra, having Nick and Emma, really push it for us, the senior marketeers, that's obviously what helped push it over the line. But yeah, it wasn't as easy as probably Simon maybe laid out.
No, I think it was one of the solutions offered by the legal guys. And I think they were genuinely trying to be really helpful, was they could call an extraordinary meeting and get the Tesco chairman in to kind of like overrule on certain bits. And suddenly we felt very out of our depth straight away.
Yeah, so there are some moments with regards to the data. When you were working on it, writing all the drafts, were there any moments when you look back and think about, oh God, that was difficult, or that's going to be memorable, or we better win after we've been through all of this?
Fair to say, me and Simon didn't necessarily always agree on the narrative. But
that's what I was waiting for.
I know, but look, I think clearly Simon was the lead author here, and I was definitely his deputy. But I think there's many different ways we could have told this story, and we definitely disagree. But I think clearly we found a way forward, and I think because there's many ways to skin a cat, right? So, and also telling 5 years, and there's so much you want to say. And you can take it down the food love stories route, you can take it down the 5-year route, you can talk about Dave Lewis, you can talk about, there's lots of different sort of slight nuances to the angles. But that's all the fun, isn't it? And getting it to the most clean, simplified version, which I think we were able to do in the end. So
yeah, I'd say the same. We definitely had a debate over the narrative. But I think James is right. The hardest part of this is that there's so much stuff. I keep coming back to the size and the scale. We've got this phrase for Tesco we use about trust over time, trade overnight. So we kind of we're constantly spinning the wheels of a business to make sure we've got trade and we're selling. But at the same point, you're trying to move big brand metrics at the top of the funnel as well. So even trying to explain those two things over 5 years, and then in a weird way, it took us quite a while to step back and go, well, actually, let's look at the full 5 years. At the time, it felt like it was phases, and we've always called out when it feels like, right, now we need to move into value as a new phase. And I think it was just going back to all of those and going, great, let's break it down. And we always say it, but often just because it's right in front of you, you forget it sometimes. And then fundamentally, this is all about Tesco going back to putting their customers first. And I know that's cheesy language that lots of people used, but I think between Dave Lewis, Ale, and all of her team, everything comes through about going, it's are we serving customers better? So, and I think at the heart of that, you've got a business that believes in it. Suddenly, it makes it a lot easier to tell the story, and that's why the entire story is purely about things we've done to put customers back at heart and the result that it's had. But it took a while to get there, definitely.
Yeah, it's like people underestimate, in my opinion, and many of us are guilty of it. Don't you think that it seems very easy? Of course, it's retail, grocery. Of course, they're going to want to put their customers first. They're not going to have a business if they don't. So, how hard is that? And I'm so happy that we're talking about this because, sometimes things that appear really easy aren't really that easy to align on. And, if everyone's doing that, how do Tesco do it in a way that's more compelling creatively and commercially than its competition? So that's really helpful. And to what extent do you think it's, I know it's like stating the obvious, but, really sticking to the narrative? Because sometimes what happens is that we come up with a narrative and then we feel like the evidence, and I've heard this from other, people who write their submissions, and we've been having some coaching sessions where sometimes the evidence or what we have to substantiate the narrative isn't enough. And then we decide, okay, maybe we should just really tweak the narrative, so to speak, or the story to kind of fit what we've got by way of evidence. To what extent do you think that is something that your advice would be to permit or not permit, based on your own experience?
I think that's a really important point, and what it taps into for me is almost what's your starting point of the paper, and we were given some very good advice about almost work out what is the killer chart, what is the one chart, because that's the paper at its simplest. What are you showing that's changed? How are you showing how it's changed, and how are you showing it in a way that it has to be marketing? So we did start there initially, and this may sound a little bit arrogant, but over the 5 years, we had so bloody many of them. So did we talk about how well food's improved? Do we talk? Do we just make it about foods? Do we make it about how value's done? Do we just make it about trust? So actually, like James said, it's almost whittling down into going. It's what do you lose in the story as much as anything. And I think then once you've kind of locked in on what's that killer chart and what's that killer thread, which normally ends up being your title, right? They almost become, like your brand strategy in a way. If it's not adding to that, then lose it. So I think killing and leaving out a lot of stuff is almost the hardest bit, just to maintain the simplicity of the story.
Yeah, I think one other thing that your paper does so brilliantly is, like many best in class papers, I think it makes a commercial case for creativity as well. Too often the conversation happens in a either or context. So is this about the work, or is it about the results? Is it about creativity, or is it about commercial outcomes? And this work actually, they both mutually reinforce each other. So, talk to us a little bit about just the importance you feel about, making sure the connection between creativity, brand positioning or purpose or a point of view, and the commercial outcomes. To what degree are those important in reinforcing each other?
For me, James might disagree, but the way I always like to think about Tesco, especially, is it's a perfect example of reconnecting brand and business. And often people go, you start with a business because that's the thing that exists and makes money. Well, often businesses start with an idea, and well, they always start with an idea, and that's the brand. And I think what had happened at Tesco is the brand and the business become disconnected. The business was great at making money, it knew how to be profitable, it knew how to sell stuff. Slowly over time, I think people had lost trust with it. They felt like Tesco were doing things just for Tesco's sake, and so that brand and business is separated. So for me, this is a classic story of putting the brand back at the heart of the business, putting helpfulness right back in there again, which came from the top down from Dave Lewis. And I think with that, then you've got such cleaner alignment, and all the business parts of the business are pulling towards the same direction. And then actually, I think it made our jobs as a media and creative a bit easier, So how do we best deliver helpfulness? How can marketing lead the way to show the change that's helping with Tesco? And it's funny because most of our arguments are around how do we make the work even better, because I think we've got such faith in that what we're doing will hit the numbers. Now it's about let's make the work as good as it possibly can be creatively. And I don't know what you think from a media side, James.
No, I mean, how do you disagree with that? Putting the brand back at the heart of it, and I think I can't remember the exact phrase Dave used to use, but it was like doing open heart surgery for the brand, right, in public. And I think everyone knows Tesco's woes, but having an ex-marketeer as a CEO, having the focus, it's one of his 6 drivers, right? One of his 6 sort of original part of his 5-point plan is restoring the health of the brand. So it gave us, the credibility and the focus of the business on rebuilding it. So, and absolutely, clearly media can play a massive role in that as well. So, I think that's sort of the fun has been. We all know what the challenge has been, how we get to it, be it in the food campaigns value, whatever. I think that's where the healthy tension and I think the great debates come from. So, it was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be out of time soon, but I have 2 really quick questions for you. One is, at what point in the journey did you have that moment when you kind of look at each other and say, I think we've got a winner here?
I think we both thought we'll be really disappointed if we don't get something from this. But I don't think we had a kind of, this is it, nailed. It was more, I think that's why we felt relieved more than anything, all the effort and work that went into the business turnaround, not just writing the paper. It was, please get something.
Okay, well, that's fair. And okay, we're almost out of time. Last thing for both of you. If there's one piece of advice, and I know it sounds trite, but if there's one piece of advice you have for anyone who's working on 2022 and has the ambition to win a Grand Prix, and take it away from you guys, well, what would that be?
Look, I think you've got to get to your narrative, and I think it starts with the results. I think in so many ways you always have to start at the end. What Simon said was, what's your killer chart? It's almost what's your executive summary, what's your headline, and then if that feels tight and you feel like you've got a real strong story there, then you have obviously the confidence to fill that out and bring that in. And obviously as a media agency, I would say the best entries are done in combination clearly with the client and obviously your creative agency. And I think that's when you can really see the whole comms mix coming together. So I think having that story on a page, as it were, which is always, it sounds easier than it is, would be my first point. And obviously working with your partners and your clients is obviously going to be the second.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I must have it somewhere. We've probably got the narrative of the entire paper just as bullets on half a side of A4. So I think there's definitely something in that. And then the thing I'd add is getting buy-in really early. And by that, I don't just mean getting permission to use data from clients and from different sources, getting the creative agency, the media agency, the client really up and wanting to win it. Because I think have those hard chats at the start to go, we're going to have to share a lot of data here. This isn't just about permission. This is actually, we have to tell a story. So let's get buy-in collectively. So when we chat to the legal guys, we chat to corporate, we chat to the data guys, we all believe it's worth doing. If you've got that, then it makes everything so much easier.
It's great. Well, thank you both so much for your time. We're out of time. I'm sure this is going to be incredibly helpful. And I've had a lot of fun talking to both of you. So when this lockdown is over, I'm looking forward to actually meeting in person and we can have a proper celebration, even if that means, I hope that's before 2022. We'll make sure of that. Thank you both so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.